Hello and welcome to Twisted Britain, a podcast on true crime in Britain with a sprinkling of the weird and the macabre. And your hosts are me, Bob Dale.
And me, Nadine Royal. We're a couple of friends who met in the pub and developed a friendship based on our mutual love of booze, podcasts and pub quizzes. We met in the Settle Inn in Stirling, and that's where we record.
Each week we'll both tell a story of something twisted, one long one and one short one, and we'll decide who goes first.
Based on the flip of a coin.
Which I've already looked out.
Yay!
Yay.
Super prepared.
You alright?
Yeah, I'm alright. How are you?
I'm good. Was it the pumpkin patch of the weekend?
I know, I've got plans to go on the 2nd of November, because I've got a Halloween party that night as well, so we're going to take him a pumpkin.
I was going to say it's a pretty useless thing to have after Halloween.
No, if you're doing after posthumous, no.
That's what, after dead? Well, guys, maybe.
It is the death of
Halloween.
Halloween.
Yeah, fair enough. No, it was cool. It was good fun, actually. You'll love it. It's proper...
Is it Arm Prior you went to?
Yeah.
Nice. They've got glamping pods now, did you see?
And a swimming pool.
Very nice.
Yeah. No, it's a cool place, actually. And our we went with friends, and our friend's son found a pumpkin that just looked like a butthole. And that was him all afternoon, just killing himself laughing. I say him. I was laughing.
I was going to say, I bet you were as well. That was cute. I like the photo a lot, actually. Very cute family photo you got rocking.
Yes. It was cool, though, because you can dig up your own tatties.
Oh, very cool.
You can dig up a bag of potatoes and just take them home. Like, obviously, you pay for them, but you just fill a bag.
Did you do it?
Yeah, of course. Fun. So we got pumpkin, we got turnip,
I might do that as
and some tatties.
You got turnips as well?
Yeah, pull it out of the ground yourself. I
love that.
I mean, you do all the work and then you pay more for it, but never mind, it's fine. It's supposed to. It's fun.
Paying for your own slave labour.
And they've got this like play area that they've put up that's just like bales of hay. So that was Isaac.
Oh, I bet he was having the time of his life.
So yeah, that was my weekend. That and panto rehearsals, of course.
I always used to like going. My mum used to take me to this little farm near where I grew up in Helensburgh, where you could pick your own strawberries. I used to love doing that. You get like a little punnet and off you'd go, off into the field. And again, I think Mum was actually just quite pleased to have freshly picked strawberries that she didn't have to do herself, just use her children.
And an hour that just send you away to go and do something.
Off you go, into the fields.
Bugger off for a while. Thank you very much.
Wow.
How's your week been?
Yeah, it's been all right. I've had a bit of a stressful weekend. As you know, my car decided to break down, so that was quite an exciting time. I was going to the cinema in Falkirk, of all places, to see the Billy Connolly's last stand-up with the interview beforehand. It was really great. I had a really great night. And it just so happened that I got in the car to set off, and it wouldn't engage any of its gears, which was just, as you can imagine, wonderful. And then eventually it did. But the whole drive to and from Falkirk, anytime I was trying to drop a gear, it was just not letting me. So that was quite...
You had a 1-gear automatic car, pretty much.
It let me go up the gears, just not back down them. So every time I had to slow down, I just had to stop entirely, disengage, like put it into neutral, then put it back into first and set off again. So I looked like I had no idea how to drive the car. But it's all fixed now, so all good.
And since you've had your motoring woes, we're at your flat this time.
I know. Here we are.
Kind of had to, because either that or we weren't recording.
A little bit, I know. I gave it a good spruce before you came round. Did you notice?
I noticed. It's nice and tidy. I like it. So everybody listening will have to excuse us for not being in the pub.
Yeah.
We are as sad about it as you are.
I know. Neither of us drink. I should have got some wine in for myself. I didn't even think to drink. How odd.
I've got a glass of water.
Who am I? I didn't even think about getting myself a drink.
Maybe we just need to stop this.
I've got raspberry sours. I suppose I could shot it the whole way
If you sit there doing shots while I tell you a case from history, I'll be quite upset by that. I'll laugh, but yeah, you'll end up hammered by the end of the podcast.
Yeah, probably not a good idea.
It's usually me that's hammered, so why not?
I know. Also, excuse any squawks or peeps in the background, because Peepers is just free and loose out and about. That's my pet cockatiel, for anybody who doesn't know.
Yeah, I mean...
Actually, you can see him. He's featured in my Twisted Britain story on Instagram.
Oh, yes, he is,
If you'd like to see him, that's him.
Which we need to do another one of sometime.
Yeah, we've not done one in a while.
You need to do one since yours is now a drive rather than a walk to work.
Oh, that'd actually be quite a good one, that. Yeah, we'll do that.
Don't use your phone while driving, obviously. Obviously. How's your research gone?
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed this one.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm. I had loads of ideas for what to do, and I am going to do my promised mini-series that we discussed last week. But yeah, I didn't know what to do, and then I Googled, I won't tell you what I Googled, but I Googled something and then found this great story.
Fine.
Yeah.
will you tell me what you Googled afterwards?
Yeah, I'll tell you as I get into it, yeah.
Fine, perfect. Mine, I've had, because our last couple of recordings, we didn't know what we were doing. I thought I was on Long Story, you thought you were on Long Story. I've had this one ready for ages.
Nice.
To the point where I think I've probably forgotten it now. So we'll see. Because, we had our mix-up now was on Short Story.
Yeah.
And then we did our Patreon record. So I've had it, probably 3 weeks I've had this written.
Very, very organised.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Accidentally, but still.
Yeah, because I was
Well
planning.
done.
I mean, I wrote it 20 minutes before I thought I was recording it. It was just 3 weeks earlier.
Well, shall we?
Yeah, do you want to call?
Yeah, okay. I think I said tails last time. So I'll say heads this time. You go first.
It's heads.
Oh, lovely.
I'm on Long Story this week, as we've just said.
I'll settle back and drink my orange squash.
Enjoy. If you get up and start doing shots, I'm going to be pissed off. So this week, I'm going to tell you the story of Dick Turpin.
Oh, I did know this was coming, actually, because I did see your clues.
Oh, did you see them?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did. I didn't mean to, but there they were. And
it's
I
not
wouldn't
often-
have known had I not read the comments, so that's my bad.
Right, fine. So you don't know the story of Dick Turpin then?
No, I don't.
So for anybody listening who doesn't know who Dick Turpin was, he was an English highwayman, one of the most famous highwaymen. And he became famous and kind of romanticised, and he's supposed to be this dashing, good-looking, kind of not hero, but like villainous hero type thing. Not Robin Hood-esque, but
A
just...
bit like William Wallace.
More, well, no, because he was still robbing the rich, but
Right.
he wasn't giving it to anybody, he just kept it.
Oh.
He was just robbing rich people.
People just liked him anyway. Was it big? What was it like? People of similar like social standing as him were like, yeah,
kind of, yeah.
cool.
He's the man that kind of they put as coined the phrase "stand and deliver." So he's that kind of, and he's famous for a certain.
Is that what the Adamant song's about?
Yeah.
Stand and deliver.
Thanks for that. That was lovely.
Oh, I hoped you'd do the next bit.
No. So yeah, he was romanticised kind of in folklore as such, and people wrote books about him years and years after he was dead, so that kind of direct memory of him went away,
Right.
and he became this kind of hero. He's like I say, he was supposed to be a handsome man and everything, whereas actually in real life he was covered in smallpox scars and all that kind of stuff. So
That is what I look for in a man.
smallpox scars, is it?
Tall, dark, and smallpox.
Well, you are going to love this then. So he isn't that hero that's commonly remembered. In fact, he was quite a horrible man who made a living out of poaching and robbing and eventually killing as well. Dick, or Richard Turpin, was born to John and Elizabeth Turpin in Essex in 1705, and he was the fifth of six children. At first, he kind of went into business with his father, and he trained as an apprentice butcher. His dad's that was the kind of family trade. His dad was a butcher, and by some accounts I read, he ended up even owning his own butchery when he grew up in a town over. So he wasn't in direct competition with his dad. He just, I'll set up next door.
I hope if he did, it'd be like Turpin's Butchers, and then he's like and Sons, but next door rather than it being
and Sons is the next shop,
or like maybe you call it like Or Sons.
Yeah, indeed. This, however, was the only honest work he would do for the rest of his life. He kind of fell in with an Essex gang who were deer poachers, and he probably became involved with them due to the fact that they needed butchers. So once they would go out and they'd poach the deers, they needed men to chop them up,
Yeah, that's fair.
and butcher them essentially, so that they could move the meat on and sell it. However, not content with the money that they were making by poaching deer, and I love this because it's like a proper cartoon image, and smuggling the meat into London in carts covered over the top with vegetables. So it was all meat on the bottom and then just like carrots on the top of it to drag it in by cart to London. So yeah, not content with the money they were making by poaching the deer, they started to rob houses in the north of London. And they would typically target houses and farms where they could break in and find that there was only the female of the house present in the house by themselves. And they would do that so that they could torture the women until they would tell them where the valuables or where the savings was or how to open the safe or whatever it happened to be. So they would torture these women quite horrifically, in fact. on one occasion when they broke into the house of an older woman, and older I mean like in her, she was a widow,
Right.
in her latter years, shall we say, living on her own with a suspected sum of about £700 in the house, which back then would have been, oh, hang on, I did the sums for something else. I could probably work it out. Somewhere, tens of thousands of pounds.
Blimey.
That she was keeping in the
Get a
house.
bank.
Well, they didn't trust the banks, did they? This is 1700s. Things come round.
Yeah, I was going to say, do we? Does anybody?
So, being a rather hardened woman to life, she told the gang nothing. I will tell you not where my savings are. I'll tell you nothing. Until, that is, Dick Turpin held her over the open fire until she gave up the location of the money.
Held her over a fire.
Yeah, so the fire burning in the house, he just held her over it.
Yep, I'd give up my info if somebody did that to me, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I'd, before that point, be like, do you know what? Rather not be hung over a fire.
Yeah, pretty bad. So they got away with the money. And they did quite well at this, shall we say. They got a good few years out of it and managed to build up a reward for their capture at £50 for each of them, which is about 11 grand these days. So they had a kind of £50 bounty on their heads as such,
Yep.
placed there by the king. Yeah. As the police started to kind of up their game and close in on the gang, they had a few close encounters, and they managed to escape a couple of times mainly from pubs. From what I was reading, they'd go to a pub and be recognised as part of the Essex gang, and the landlord or somebody in the pub would phone the police to try and collect the bounty, essentially. And they had a few close escapes until towards the end of 1735, when two of the gang got caught, and Turpin only just managed to escape. It was at this point that the gang started to disband, as it was becoming too hot for them, essentially. And Mr. Dick Turpin took up the trade that would get him his legendary status, highwayman. Before I started reading kind of into the Dick Turpin story, the image I had in my head of a highwayman was like, jumping out the bushes and holding up a carriage.
Yes, yeah, that's kind of what I think of. Like,
got the
horseback chases.
Yeah, so you've got the driver and the helper on the front, and then the rich people in the carriage inside. Didn't even fucking see him coming.
I can do that.
Right? Just been attacked by a wild animal.
This is Peeps trying to say hey to you. He just lands on you.
That's fine, but I didn't fucking see him coming. I was looking at you.
Oh, sorry, Peeps. Doesn't want to be your pal. Sorry.
Where was I?
So we're talking about drivers, rich people in the back.
But the actual kind of reality of it wasn't, they would never have held up coaches or carriages because you're easily outnumbered. Because the driver would be there, and the driver and the coachman would probably have weapons, and they would. So what they tended to do was target lone travellers on horseback, so just one man on a horse, and they would they'd go look for a guy that was going past, going, oh, he's wearing nice clothes, and that's a nice kept horse. We'll rob him because he'll be rich, and that was it. And they would, and if Dick Turpin had partnered up with somebody, they instantly outnumber the traveller rather than having to take on a coachload of people.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, on one of these occasions, in a mild twist of fate, Turpin targeted a very well-dressed man on a horse, lone traveller on a horseback. Very nice horse. He went, oh, I'm going to hold this guy up. So as he jumped out, he probably shouted "stand and deliver" or something along those lines. Maybe not adamante, but but it actually turned out to be Tom King, who was also a very successful highwayman, who just had a penchant for fine clothes, and he'd probably nicked that horse off somebody else.
If you're quite successful, he probably would like.
And one of the accounts I read had Tom King going, "I know who you are. How do you not know who I am?" So he was like, "You're Dick Turpin," and he was like, "Yeah." who are you? He's like, well, I'm a highwayman as well. And they're like, cool. We're both highwaymen. That's great. Do you want to be friends?
Of course you would. You'd be like, yes.
So the two of them join forces and set up a camp in a cave in Epping Forest. And they managed to forge quite a successful partnership, robbing pretty much anyone that passed by the front of their cave.
Excellent.
So they would sit in the cave and they would wait. And they wouldn't be seen, obviously, because they're hiding in their cave. But as soon as they saw somebody go by, they'd jump out, rob them, go back into the cave.
That's a good method, I'd say.
Yeah.
Very Sonny Bean.
Quite Sonny Bean, except they didn't eat them. Just small...
Half Sonny Bean.
Small detail there. And they kept this plan going for about a year. And by the time we get into 1737, the bounty on Turpin and King's heads had been up to £100, so 20-odd thousand pound by this point. And obviously, due to it being a good sum of money, it attracted people that wanted to go, bounty hunters, essentially.
Well, yes.
That were trying to track him down for the money. And one of these men that went looking for him was a gamekeeper who managed to track him down to Epping Forest. And when he found him, he drew his gun to challenge him. Turpin wasn't a big fan of having a gun pointed at him, and this became the first record of him killing someone. He drew his weapon and shot back and killed the gamekeeper that had come looking for him. Not his last murder, but his first documented one.
Okay. Before you get into it, because I don't know the nature of like the rest of any of his murders, in your opinion, does he then go on to murder more because he's like, oh, that's quite like a good way to do it? Or do you think it's always like a circumstantial, like, right, we're in a kind of like tussle or a battle?
So there's only one more murder. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to tell you. I'll let you.
Okay.
We'll get onto it reasonably soon, but you'll be taken aback a bit, I think, by it.
Okay.
So Turpin at this point started to believe he was a bit untouchable. You know, he got a bit of a big head and his ego grew. And he decided that on the next robbery, he stopped a man by the name of Mr. Mr. Major. And this time, rather than taking his money and valuables, he kind of liked his horse and went, give me your horse. And by all accounts, it was a very distinct, beautiful horse with like big white socks on it. And, you know, it was quite a...
Bit of a fancy boy.
Bit of a fancy horse. However, because of that, it was very recognisable as that specific horse. So Turpin manages to relieve Mr. Major of this horse, shall we say. However, Mr. Major didn't take it very well, and he went round all the pubs in the area describing both the horse and Turpin to the landlords in the pubs. And he eventually tracked it down to a pub, which I thought you would like the name of.
Oh, can't wait.
It's the Red Lion.
Hey! Add it to the tour.
So he tracked him down to the Red Lion pub in Whitechapel, where Turpin had stabled the horse. The police were informed that that's where the horse was, and in a kind of unfortunate turn of events, it was Tom King that actually went to go and fetch the horse. And as he arrived, the police tried to arrest him. A bit of a struggle ensued, and Turpin, who had been loitering about nearby, had decided to come over and help his partner in crime out, with Tom King shouting, shoot at them, which he did. However, Dick Turpin is a terrible, terrible shot.
Oh dear.
And he missed the police and hit Tom instead, mortally wounding him. So that was the only. That's the other murder.
Oh well, it's just like accidental then.
So, however, before King died, the police managed to get enough information out of him to force Turpin to go into hiding. Turpin fled the area, running off to York, and started using the name of John Palmer. So this is where Dick Turpin's very famous for a ride to York on the back of Black Bess, which was his horse.
Great horse name.
Didn't really exist. I'll get on to Black Bess wasn't real, which is so there's an infamous story about the ride. So what happens is he fled from London, being chased by the cops, and his horse, which must have been the best horse of all time, and him managed to escape from the police that were chasing him in one ride from London to York, which was around 208, 210 miles.
And the horse didn't stop.
And legend has it that they did it in one ride overnight without stopping. Now, this would require Black Bess to have run at about 20 miles an hour for 10 hours straight without stopping. This is, in fact, not possible.
I don't know. Could it have been the best horse that ever did live?
The best horse that ever did live can manage to keep that required speed and pace up for around 5 miles, leaving 203 miles to go.
I might try and maybe I'll do my next story on just Black Bess.
Black Bess is bullshit. Because the legend goes that they rode through the night to York.
Yeah.
And it's this big thing that he did it in one go, and that's how he got away, because the police would have had to stop every however many miles to get on a new horse and obviously, but as they arrived at like the doorway to York, Dick Turpin jumps off the horse and the horse just dies there. It's done its bit. Done. Black Bess is dead.
I like how that horse must have been seriously committed to like helping Turpin.
I mean, it was...
She was like, do you know what? For you, I will do this.
A slave to her master. So, and the actual record of this ride actually happening comes from a book called Rookwood by William Harrison Ainsworth, which was written about 100 years after Turpin's death.
Right.
So this is part of the thing that feeds into Turpin's legend.
Yeah, it's like, oh, he did this like ridiculous, impossible like feat and stunt. How did he get away then?
He just rode a horse until it got tired and then hid in a cave, probably.
Excellent.
Yeah, because the legend has it that the police were like hot on his tail, but actually as soon as he shot and saw he'd hit Tom, he scarpered.
Yeah.
At which point, obviously, the police would have tried to then get information out. So he had a head start, and he just went. Like, he could have gone anywhere. Like, they wouldn't have found him.
Yeah, it would have been way harder back then to chase somebody, wouldn't it? If you didn't see where they went, kind of thing. Like, it's not modern day police chasing where you can use CCTV and
they didn't have any
find their car.
Number plate recognition cameras for horses.
Somebody's just in a tree, like, he's over here.
Yeah.
See the horse.
This guy with a speed gun up a tree.
My God.
That horse is going at quite a rate.
That horse has been going at 20 miles per hour for the past 10 hours.
Only 8 miles to go. Anyway, no matter how he managed to do it, he did get to York. However, he definitely didn't do it in one night.
Yeah, fair. I can just... Sorry. I just like suddenly thought of like loads of different people in loads of different trees now, and they're like average speed checkers, but for horses.
He came past at 10 past 2.
That's where the legend obviously came from.
Yeah. No. So he gets to York and settles down in a village called Borough, and he starts up as a horse trader under the name of John Palmer. I'm pretty sure this was pretty much just a front for stealing more horses.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea.
And he would travel between Lincolnshire and Yorkshire, holding up people on the roads, and being a highwayman in Yorkshire rather than a highwayman in London. Because, bad habits die hard and all that, don't they? So on the 2nd of October, 1738, whilst under the influence of a rather small amount of alcohol, he shot a chicken.
Oh.
Just in the street.
Oh.
Shot a chicken. Not just any chicken, but a gamecock.
Right.
Which is basically a fighting bird.
Right.
He had been seen doing this by a man called John Robinson, and John had told him he'd done a really stupid thing, because that was his landlord's...
Like best chicken?
Yeah, it was Dick Turpin's landlord's chicken.
Oh, for goodness. Why would you shoot the chicken? Why did the chicken cross the road? We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Got shot.
Well, this was a gamecock, not just any chicken. And I'm very impressed that you're not laughing at that. Well done.
Thanks.
Yeah, good. So Turpin's response to John was, wait till I've recharged my piece and I'll shoot you too. Just a bit pissed, I think. However, the police were called, caught up with him quite quickly because, his landlord would know where he lived.
Yes.
Good
point.
He was hauled up in front of a judge, still using the name John Palmer. So nobody knew that they'd managed to catch the infamous Dick Turpin and put him in front of a judge. He was ordered to pay damages, essentially, for the chicken, but he didn't. So he was sent to prison. It was during his time in prison that his downfall happened. Mm-hmm. He wrote a letter to his brother-in-law, basically asking him for witness for to show that he was a good man. You know, this was a mistake, but his brother-in-law was tight and refused to pay the postage on the letter.
Oh my God. I thought you were going to say refuse to travel to, and I was like, whoa, yeah, it would cost quite a lot. But just the postage.
Yeah, I think it was 6 pence.
Oh my goodness.
So he refused to pay, so the letter itself was returned to the post office. Whereas it just so happens that that it was spotted by a postman. Right. Obviously. But this postman turned out to be the man who taught Dick Turpin how to write.
Oh, okay.
And he recognised the handwriting on it.
That seems a bit far-fetched.
And he reported that this letter, he went back to the police and went, this letter came from Dick Turpin. I'm certain of it. Now I'm with you. I'm like, this is part of the legend. But actually, he becomes one of the witnesses in court.
Amazing.
So yeah, he reports to the police, this letter came from Dick Turpin. And they were like, are you sure? He was like, yeah, I'm absolutely certain that's his handwriting. So the postie was sent to York Prison to make an identification of the prisoner that had sent the letter. And he positively identified that was Dick Turpin. That was the man he knew. And at that point, the postie collected the reward that had been on Turpin's head at this point, which had been lifted to £200, 30-odd thousand pounds.
Oh my God.
And Turpin was taken to trial. He admitted everything at trial. They had witnesses brought in. Like I say, the postie was one of them, and basically didn't have a leg to stand on.
Yeah, fair.
They had it sewn up, but he did admit everything. He was found guilty of 2 counts of horse theft and sentenced to death. Now, weirdly, I couldn't find why he wasn't charged with murder, because he has killed 2 men. One of them a notorious highwayman, so they probably weren't overly bothered by that one. But the gamekeeper, certainly that was cold-blooded murder.
I wonder as well, back then, do you think there was any kind of law that if you were shot at first or something, it didn't count?
Possibly. Yeah, I don't know actually.
Do you know that way? I just imagine that'd be a thing well, he shot me first, and they'd go, yeah, okay, fair enough.
Either way, horse theft was
that's a biggie.
Was punishable by death anyway. So he was sent to the gallows for that. His father, John Palmer, John Turpin, he's still pretending to be John Palmer, begged with the authorities to change his sentence to that of transportation, which was essentially put in a boat and sent to America. So please don't kill him, just get rid of him.
Just ship him to America.
Ship him to, which is apparently that was
and then now you're just not my problem.
Yeah, exactly that, yeah.
Fair enough.
But his pleas basically didn't change anything and the sentence was upheld. Probably because of who he was. He was a notorious highwayman. He was wanted. He was one of Britain's most wanted men at this time. Mm-hmm. And they had him, so they weren't going to let him go. This is my favourite bit. So during the time in this cell between trial and execution date, the jailer managed to make 100 quid off him by selling him booze. That's a smart man. I like him a lot. Turpin, being that man that had grown this huge ego, however, before his execution date, bought himself a nice new jacket and trousers.
Oh, lovely.
Make himself look the part. Can't
take your money with you. Might as well spend it.
Exactly. Spent some of it. He spent 60 shillings of it, in fact, hiring 6 mourners to walk behind him on the way to the gallows. He's like, fuck, everybody definitely hates me. I'll get me some actors.
That's fucking iconic. I'm going to hire mourners for my funeral.
Yeah, totally. So Turpin was loaded into one of those, and I've written cart here, but I can't think of the right word. With it, has the jail on the back of it.
Yes, yeah.
So cart with iron bars and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Jail cart.
Yeah, it looks like a circus, looks like a circus wagon type thing, but it's not an animal. It's Dick Turpin that's inside it. However, being the gentleman that he was, he bowed to the crowds that were gathered as he was taken to the gallows, which had been erected at York Racecourse.
Right.
Turpin was to be executed, however, by a man who'd been pardoned of his crimes. So this was a thing that happened, was if you were found guilty of something, you were offered the chance to be pardoned of your crimes if you were willing to be the executioner.
Oh my God.
Because nobody wanted to do it.
That's fair. For a minute, I thought you were gonna say, if you were like pardoned of your crimes, like, ooh, our bad, like injustice was served, like you're not guilty.
Would you like to cut somebody's head off?
Yeah, as a reward. Like,
no.
Congratulations, you're out of prison and you get to kill somebody.
I think it's more a case of, look, none of us want to do it. We'll let you off if you kill them.
Fuck it, I would if I was in prison and that was.
So a man by the name of Thomas Hadfield was the executioner on that day, and he was also a highwayman.
Congrats, Thomas.
So he was stood at the top of the ladder, and he gave an account of the execution of Dick Turpin to the Gentleman's Magazine.
Oh.
And in said account to the Gentleman's Magazine, which sounds like a wonderful, like
I'd like to read it.
Like waxed mustaches and all sorts in it. Turpin behaved. So this was Thomas Hadfield's account, part of his account anyway. Turpin behaved in an undaunted manner as he mounted the ladder. Wow. Feeling his right leg tremble, he spoke a few words to the topsman, then threw himself off and expired in 5 minutes.
Wow.
He was killed by short drop on the 7th of April, 1739. Short drop being...
Strangle.
Yeah, he was strangulated to death on a rope. His grave sits in St. George's Churchyard and has the inscription, John Palmer, otherwise Richard Turpin, the notorious highwayman and horse stealer.
Nice. Good inscription.
So that is the life and death of Dick Turpin.
That was really good. I loved that.
Do you know what? I really loved reading it.
I would never have thought to done that, I don't think.
Because I was like, wow, I was 3 weeks ago now, was going, oh God, what am I going to do for a long story? And then ridiculously on my on YouTube, the Horrible Histories.
Yes, yeah.
So there's a Dick Turpin song that they do in Horrible Histories, and it was like up next on YouTube because apparently I look up some weird shit on YouTube, and I went, oh, okay, he was a highwayman. Yeah, let's do that. And then I started reading it. I was like, oh, I really like this story, and I like the fact that all the legend shit
is shit,
just totally made up.
Excellent.
100 years after he died.
That's the way with most things. Actually, he is quite like William Wallace in that respect because I was like reading this like really interesting. I think it was when I was at the William Wallace Monument actually, in Stirling. Yeah, I was like reading this. Yeah, I must have been in there. I learned about him a bit more because William Wallace, even though like hero of the people and stuff, people didn't actually like him that much because he was a bit of a nuisance. And then it was Harry the Blind, I believe, that wrote a sonnet or a poem or something about William Wallace that painted him as this hero. And then since then, everyone's like, oh yeah, William Wallace, freedom, hero, like and everyone loves him these days. But apparently back then, a bit of a pain in the arse.
There you go. Didn't know that.
And yeah, like quite a lot of the stuff about him was like a bit fabled. My
favourite thing is the statue that they put at the Wallace Monument after Braveheart came out, and it just looked like Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
So people smashed the head off it.
Yeah.
They had to put a cage around it.
It was actually, I'm not going to get in, I could go on all day about the stuff I learned. I do. If you want to learn a bit more about Scottish history, please do visit the Wallace Monument in Stirling, because I learned a terrible lot, and I'm not going to spoil it by talking about it here.
150 years ago that was built.
It's very impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, there was a fireworks display that we saw out the window from the flat.
Nice.
It was really cool, actually. Yeah.
Oh, what, 150 years ago? I did think you looked a bit old.
No, I'm just feeling that. Just anyway, so that was the story of Dick Turpin.
It was amazing, loved it.
And actually, when you start looking at them, there were hundreds of highwaymen, like loads and loads of highwaymen, but he's the one that sticks out as the famous one, for no other reason than...
just all like the legend shit.
Yeah, mainly down to William Harrison Ainsworth, who was the guy that wrote the Rookwood book, like I say, 100 years after he died. So
that's quite cool.
That's the kind of, I think that's the spawn of the legend, was a century later.
Do you know, I knew so little about him before you taught me about him that if you'd asked me where he's from, I would have said America. I just always associate highwaymen with being American.
No, it's very English crime.
Yeah, I don't know why I had that. Probably just all like movies and stuff.
Yeah, probably. And if you picture coaches, you probably picture like stagecoach wagons and all that kind of stuff. Whereas actually,
I think of like kind of
Yeah, no, this was like the gentry out in their horse.
That's very cool. Did he wear the mask then?
As far as we know, he wore the hat. The 3-pointed hat.
Yeah.
And a mask, but not specifically the one I put up in the photo.
Right.
That was just a wonderful fancy dress costume that I found.
Did like it.
But yeah, there you go.
Fantastic. Enjoyed it greatly.
Good. Shall we take a wee break?
Yeah, have a wee break.
And we'll be back shortly.
Bye.
Hi, my name is PJ, and I host a show called Simply Strange. From cold cases to aliens, cryptids to ghost stories, every episode of Simply Strange is a storytelling experience that will take you on a journey through some of our world's darkest mysteries, putting you in the shoes of those who experienced them, while also attempting to uncover the truth behind the madness. So if you love thought-provoking stories that will disturb you to your core, and maybe make you check the closet before you turn the lights out, then I would like to cordially invite you to come check out Simply Strange at simplystrangepodcast.com, or just search Simply Strange wherever you listen to your podcasts.
And that's us back.
Hello.
You right?
Yeah.
You set to go?
All good.
I'm ready.
Lost peepers for a moment.
You did lose an entire bird.
In amongst my pillows, the little shit. Right. So, I'll tell you. So what I Googled was Glasgow witches.
Okay.
Because I thought I'd be in keeping with my month of Halloween and do more spooky stories.
Okay, cool.
And this is the story of the Paisley witches.
Cool.
Have you heard of them?
I haven't.
Right. Well,
I look forward to hearing about them now.
Here we go. On the 17th of August, 1696, 11-year-old Christian Shaw, who was the daughter of the Laird of Bargarin, caught one of her family servants, Catherine Campbell, stealing a sip of milk. Just out the carton, or? I presume so.
I mean, that is a punishable offence.
Well, don't you dare steal my milk. She reported this theft, I think, which is an outrageous term.
I think you've gone too far if you're reporting milk theft.
She reported this theft to her mother, despite being quite friendly with the servant, and this upset Catherine deeply. Catherine cursed Christian by wishing out loud 3 times that the devil would haul her soul through hell.
Wow, that's quite something.
Yeah, well, she got the sack and stuff, I imagine, so for stealing milk. So she was quite annoyed, and as such, cursed Christian. Which, by the way, odd name for a girl.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all right. She's going to get dragged through hell, so it's fine.
4 days later, Christine encountered a woman called Agnes Naismith, who was quite an old woman who reportedly had some form of relationship with Catherine. Agnes would have been a regular visitor to Bargarin House, as well as other steadings in the local region, in search of food and materials to help her in her daily life.
Okay.
So this was like quite a common thing. It was like quite a hard time for a lot of people. So those who had money and goods and like a good life, people would quite often come to their house and just ask for things.
Geese some stuff.
Yeah, just give us something.
Geese some milk.
Bloody well, I hope not. It's thought she was quite poor, but apparently wasn't a woman that you would cross lightly.
Okay.
And there was already rumours of her being a witch in the local town. On this morning, Agnes found Christine in the courtyard with her younger sister. Agnes asked Christine about her health and what age she was, and Christine answered these questions freely. The only unusual thing about Agnes's visit was for once she didn't seek any charity. She just kind of came, spoke to Christine, and left again.
Just came for a wee chat.
Yeah, which is odd. The following day, which is the 22nd of August, 1696, Christine became violently ill with fits, which just so happened to be very similar to the symptoms which were reported by the victims of the 1693 Salem witch trials.
Right, okay.
After 8 weeks of fits, Christine's parents took her to see the well-established Glasgow physician Matthew Brisbane, which I think 8 weeks is quite a long time to wait to take somebody to the doctor.
I think if you had somebody fitting, I'd have taken them Maybe they could only get an appointment 8 weeks in advance.
Yeah, maybe. He couldn't find a cause for her symptoms. So around a week following her visit, Christine seemed to have actually recovered, but then her fits reportedly returned with increased violence. She would become as stiff as a corpse and be senseless and motionless. Christine's parents took her back to Dr. Brisbane, and by the time they arrived back in Glasgow, she had begun to pull balls of hair out of her mouth, which she claimed had been put there by those who were bewitching her.
Right, okay.
She soon began to pull other stuff out of her mouth. This is good, you can like this. Including straw, coal, gravel, chicken feathers, and ash cinders.
Why is she putting all this stuff in her mouth?
Well, apparently it's the witches.
The witches are doing it. Mm-hmm. Right.
During her fit, she was sometimes heard to be talking to the invisible Catherine Campbell, apologising and asking to be friends again. With the doctor unable to provide any rational explanation for Christine's condition, her family and their local parish minister concluded that she must be possessed and being tormented by the witches, which at the time was quite a common occurrence in England and Scotland.
Okay. I mean, it's the obvious choice. Can't think of anything. Possessed.
Witches.
Yep, done.
The church set up a weekly fast and prayer meeting at the family's house, and Christine's father appealed to the authorities that those named by his daughter as tormenting her should be arrested. She had initially identified only Catherine Campbell and Agnes Naismith, but as time went on, she accused other people in the village of casting a spell on her, which led to a local crusade. Eventually, 35 people were accused, 10 of whom were male, 20 female, and the last 5 were never documented, so it's not clear who they were.
Okay, yeah.
At the request of the Presbytery of Paisley, the Scottish Privy Council set up a commission to investigate the case. Under the chairmanship of Lord Blantyre, the hearing opened on the 5th of February, 1697. The commission's task was to decide whether there was a prima facie, which is it's a case based on the first impression, so like accepted as correct until proven otherwise.
Sorry, I didn't quite follow. So
the commission
that
were going to investigate this like supposed witchcraft.
They're
trial.
assuming.
So yeah, it's like the only thing you can go on really is prima facie. So prove like that it's guilty until proven innocent.
Right. Okay. So they're going into it assuming you are a witch.
Yeah, kind of,
and looking to try and prove that she's not.
Yeah.
Right.
Pretty much. So like the commission do that beforehand, and then there's like an official trial.
Right, okay.
So you take a first look, decide what you think, and then those that you think are guilty then will go to trial.
That's a really terrible way of doing things.
Stupid, isn't it? 7 of the 35 were subsequently summoned to appear before a second commission in Paisley, and these people were named as Margaret Lang, John Lindsay, James Lindsay, John Reed, Margaret Fulton, Catherine Campbell, and Agnes Naismith. They were charged with murder and tormenting a number of people, including Christine Shaw. So only one reference that I found said that they were charged with murder, and I couldn't find any reference to whom they murdered.
Right, okay.
But that was apparently what they were charged with, was murder and tormenting people.
Putting gravel in their mouths.
Yeah. You know, usually.
That is a shit thing to do to somebody, to be fair.
The chicken feathers was my least favourite on that list.
I don't like that.
Their advocate, James Robertson, argued that the prosecution was obliged to rule out the possibility that the events surrounding the case could be explained by natural causes before conviction could be safely secured. But Matthew Brisbane, the doctor, gave evidence stating that he'd been unable to find any cause for Christine's condition, so the trial went ahead. James Hutchison, the minister of Killaloe, delivered a sermon to the commission, which was quite commonplace at the time, especially in Scottish witch trials. It's thought that these preaching clergymen were quite important in securing convictions. So because like witchcraft was seen as this like affront to Christianity and to God and to religion, you'd bring a clergyman in who would preach about God and about how like going against God was so terrible, which would already set in the minds of the jury like, these people are terrible.
These are terrible people. They're
before
not...
you've even tried them.
Right, okay.
So it was quite devious.
Part of the show almost.
Yeah, quite devious if you ask me. The jury was also confronted by a threat from the prosecutor that if they acquitted the defendants, they would be accessory to all the blasphemies, apostasies, murders, tortures, and seductions, whereof those enemies of heaven and earth shall hereafter be guilty when they get out.
That's a strong statement.
It's very strong. So pretty much saying to the jury, if you acquit these people, you're one and the same as them. Like, you're helping these people. And
You're going to hell too.
yeah, pretty much. So the jury, of course, found all 7 guilty.
Funny that.
Funny.
Yeah, that's the least fair trial possible.
Yeah.
I'm going to go into a room with 35 folk and go, which, not a, you can go,
Yep.
which, right, how many is that? 7. Aye, that'll do, come with
Yeah.
us. Right,
Get a preacher man up.
Yeah.
Preach.
jury, I know we're not going to try and influence you, but these are terrible, terrible human beings. On you go.
Yeah. Oh, also, if you acquit them, then you're guilty and against God too. Sorry, now you go.
Yeah, fine. Right, okay.
Terrible. One of those convicted, James Reed, committed suicide by hanging himself in his prison cell using his handkerchief attached to a nail in the wall, which I can only assume he did because he knew what was to follow.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, he'd been found guilty of a witch, so it was not going to be a pretty end, was it?
It is not. The remaining 6 were hanged and then burned on the Gallows Green in Paisley on the 10th of June, 1697, which was the last mass execution for witchcraft in Western Europe.
Oh, okay.
Cool, huh?
Yeah, that's cool. Where's Gallows Green? Is Gallowgate?
No, Paisley.
Paisley. Oh, right, okay.
The atmosphere in the town that afternoon was described as being like a market day, with a large crowd gathering from far and wide to witness the gruesome spectacle. Which,
folk juggling and selling apples and
yeah.
Or was it like a different type of market where you buy your dodgy DVDs from a man with a fold out case?
No, that's the Barras around
Oh
Paisley.
yeah,
around
okay,
Paisley.
yeah, okay.
John and James Lindsay, also known as Bishop and Curate, cool nicknames,
Yeah, okay.
who were 2 of the accused, were brothers from Formican Mill, which was near Houston, and were aged 11 and 14 respectively.
Holy.
Yep. It's reported that they held each other's hands as they were hanged together.
That is a horrific image.
Isn't it?
Thanks for that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, on you go.
no, I was just going to continue with that.
Just going to say, that's because based on time frame, it would have been short drop as well. I would imagine the hanging. So that
I didn't actually look into that. Yes, actually, I believe it was.
Well, we'll take him-
and I'll tell you why in a second.
I was just basing that off the time frame that it wasn't a huge amount of time before my Dick Turpin story
Yeah.
there. So yeah, just 2 stranglified
Children.
children holding hands.
Horrid.
Don't think I like you tonight. That's a really grim image. Thanks for that.
Sorry. Margaret Lang admitted to consorting with the devil, but said that she had renounced sin and was reconciled with God before she was hanged.
Right, okay.
Margaret Fulton appeared to have become completely insane and spoke cheerfully about visits to Elfland and the abode of the fairies on the backs of magical horses.
Sweet. She's gone batshit crazy.
Absolute shit crazy, yeah.
Yeah. She's probably winning so far.
Yeah, that's how I'd rather be
You might
insane before it's
might as well go loopy if you're gonna have a bit of fun at the end. Elfland sounds lovely.
Doesn't it?
I kind of want to go.
Me too.
Yeah, okay.
Catherine Campbell, after having been carried struggling and screaming to the gallows, called down the wrath of God and the devil on her accusers before being hanged.
Sweet.
Yeah. So she protested her innocence till the moment she was hanged.
Yeah. Screaming hell on earth at people.
Yep.
Amazing.
Agnes Naismith laid a dying woman's curse,
Ah,
I know, on everyone present and their descendants.
a plague on both your houses.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for many years afterwards, every tragedy in the town was blamed on the witch's curse, including the Paisley Canal disaster in 1810, which claimed 85 lives. 85 people died, and they were like, fucking witch curse.
like 200 years later. No, 120 years later.
Yeah.
That's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, they're still like, bloody Agnes.
I wonder if they still do that.
What?
Okay, carry on.
It'll come up. One account of the execution states that some of the victims were still alive when their bodies were burned.
Oh, that's nice.
So yeah, short drop probably.
Yeah, they were just didn't give it the full 5 minutes.
And the executioners borrowed a walking stick from an onlooker, which they used to push the moving limbs back into the fire.
Grim.
Yep. The owner of the walking stick, Mark Canavan, refused to take it back after it had been in contact with the witches.
I think that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Just chuck it on the fire.
Yeah, chuck it right in there. Probably cursed now anyway.
Yeah.
The remains were then buried at Maxwelton Cross, which is where the intersection of Maxwelton Street and George Street now stands, and a horseshoe was set in the road. And this was supposed to prevent the spirits from returning to trouble the living.
All right, okay.
Which I thought
Is
was
that
really-
a thing?
Yeah, apparently, which I thought was pretty cool. The horseshoe disappeared while road work was being done in the 1960s.
Oh, for goodness sake.
And the economic decline in Paisley since 1970 has been blamed by some, tongue-in-cheek or maybe otherwise, on Agnes's curse.
Agnes. She's still winning then.
Bloody witch curse.
Yeah?
In the same kind of spirit, the horseshoe was then replaced in May 2008 by a memorial. The bronze tondo, which I looked up, a tondo is just kind of like a circular object.
Okay.
So it's like it's made of bronze, and it's like it's not like a circular plate that's flat on the ground. It is like a little bit raised.
Okay.
I'll put a photo up. It's
Yeah.
quite lovely. That has a horseshoe set into it, and it's also has the inscription "Pain inflicted, suffering endured, injustice done."
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of insinuates that they still think these people were all witches.
No, it insinuates the opposite. Injustice done.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you said and justice
Oh no,
done.
sorry. Pain inflicted, suffering endured, injustice done.
Yeah, okay, fine.
So a campaign was launched in 2008, petitioning the Scottish Parliament to pardon all the 4,000 men, women and children prosecuted under the 16th and 17th century witchcraft laws in Britain.
Wow, that's cool.
4,000 people.
Yeah, that's not cool. But the fact that they're asking people to be pardoned now,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Unfortunately, legislators argued that it was inappropriate to pardon those tried and convicted under the laws of their time.
Yeah, but witches aren't real.
Exactly.
So I think you can pardon them.
Apparently not.
I'll let them away with it. I'm gonna pardon them.
Twisted Britain pardons
Yeah, absolutely.
all witches.
Yep.
Nice.
Carry on witching.
I love it. Around 84% of victims to accused of witchcraft persecuted in Scotland were women. 84%.
Is a man still a witch?
Yes.
He is.
Yeah.
He's not like a warlock or anything like that.
No, I
then?
don't think so. I think, it depends what kind of type of witchcraft we're talking
Yeah.
about. But I think in just the general term, if you were out of the 7 of this story, a couple of them were men.
Yeah, I
3
wondered,
of them were
I suppose in that kind of black arts of generic witchcraft, so not don't take a specific branch of it as
Yes,
such.
yeah.
I didn't think men were called witches, but there you go.
Apparently back then they were.
Right. I don't think they cared who they were burning, really, did
No,
they?
I don't think they give a shit, really. Typically, the women that were accused of witchcraft were those who were regarded as outsiders or of ill repute by neighbours or people in their community.
The weirdo at the end of the street
Yeah, must be a witch.
must be a witch.
Doesn't get on with anybody, doesn't have a
Yeah,
friend. She
she's-
must be a witch.
She's a bit different.
Witch.
Yeah.
The female witches were believed to have had sex with the devil, which is pretty rock and roll.
Yep. I mean, if you're going out, you might as well.
Yeah. And after they'd had sex with the devil, he would leave a mark on their body, usually a blemish or an insensitive spot on their body, which was a parody of Christian baptism and a symbol of their pact, supposedly.
Right. Okay.
To hear more about witches' marks, listen to my episode on the Witchfinder General, who
Indeed.
was a witch pricker.
He was a witch pricker.
Remember? He
So was the devil, apparently.
Yeah, pricked by the devil, pricked by the Witchfinder.
Indeed. Too many pricks.
Yeah, and his job would be to prick and pod at
And
marks
see if it
on
hurt.
women and see if he could find their witch mark.
And if he didn't, he just found a different thing to call them a witch by.
Yeah, sometimes don't forget, if they didn't have the mark, it was probably because it was just invisible.
Yeah. Of course.
So no escaping witchcraft, really. Modern hindsight suggests that Christian was exhibiting signs of Munchausen syndrome or conversion disorder.
I was going to ask you, do we know what was actually wrong with her?
So conversion disorder is a mental condition in which a person has blindness, paralysis, or other nervous system symptoms that cannot be explained by medical evaluation. So
Right,
it's quite
okay.
a common thing. Like, people just suffer from fits and stuff, and
Yeah.
sometimes there's not a good reason for it.
Just
It's
sometimes
just
stuff happens.
Something's just wrong.
Right, okay.
So she probably had conversion disorder. There was also one of the articles I was reading suggested that maybe she was just kind of hysterical
Yeah.
because
She was just ill.
yeah,
So there was something wrong with it, epilepsy or something. There's, she had a condition.
and she just
Witch.
blamed on witches. And then apparently in later years in her bedroom there was found to be a hole in the wall through which it's maybe suspected that somebody was passing her the things to pull out of her mouth.
Okay.
Devious little bitch that she was.
I really thought you were going glory hole there, but carry on.
She was 11, Bob. Jesus.
I know. I'm sorry, I'm a terrible human. Carry on.
Christian went on to marry the Reverend John Miller, who was the parish minister of Kilmore's in Ayrshire. He died 2 years later, after which Christian went on to become a successful businesswoman. She was involved in the manufacture of thread, at first in quite a small way, but as the quality of her product began to increase and to be recognised, she became quite successful. Her Bargerin trademark thread became a mark of quality, and others in the area began to copy her techniques, starting a thread industry which Paisley would soon become quite famous for. In fact, they were like dominating the world with thread, Paisley, at one time.
Paisley pattern, innit?
Yeah. Paisley was shit hot for thread. And it shaped the town's history, really.
Yeah.
So she became quite an important
Good
person in history. The last known record of Christian is her marriage in February of 1737 to a William Livingston, who was a wealthy Edinburgh businessman. But I'd like to say, no, not good on her, the little bitch. Like, having 7 people die.
Yeah. What I meant was good on her for forging a life and probably becoming reasonably rich, I would imagine.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah. Dickhead move getting those people dead.
Yeah, really not cool. Like, it's one thing to just accuse...
getting them executed. I don't know why I just
said... Getting them dead.
Getting them dead.
Okay.
Honestly, I've lost it tonight. I really have.
Like, it's one thing... Yeah, it's like one thing to like accuse Catherine Campbell, who was like the servant stealing the milk, who cursed you and wished your soul to be hauled through hell by the devil, which, by the way, my new insult. That's one thing. It's another thing then when Agnes Naismith arrives and the next day you start taking fits to then accuse her and be like, well, they were friends, like Agnes used to visit and get stuff and Catherine, they talked. And
clearly her fault.
It's quite clearly witchcraft on the two of their part. That's one thing. Why are you accused? I couldn't find anything about the other 5 people and why they were like fingered for being witches.
Just weirdos.
Including 2 children.
Yeah.
Like a boy the same age as her and a boy a bit older than her.
Ridiculously, it'd be something as simple as she fell out with him at school or something.
Probably.
Yeah.
And then like, apart from the things coming out her mouth, there wasn't really that many other... I found one article that talked about her supposedly being flung across the classroom and her being able to pick up like her glove without bending over and using her hands to actually pick it up, like picking it up with her mind and stuff.
Nope.
That was in like one... It was very flamboyant, that article, and I didn't take it for being real at all.
A flamboyant article.
Yeah. So apart from like the things coming out her mouth, which is now thought that she was hoaxing the whole time.
Yeah.
Just was having fits and just decided she'd accuse 35 people.
It's very like your ghost, the girl knocking.
Yes, Fanny, scratching Fanny.
Scratching Fanny.
Cock Lane.
Similar to that.
Yeah, just like
just a nasty wee bitch.
Yeah, she probably the Munchausen thing. I think is like quite a good one as well because, like, I think it was like a bit of like a maybe like a bit of a cry for attention. Like she's probably quite frightened. I suppose you start having these fits if they were real.
Yeah.
And like if the doctor's like, I don't know, probably witches, and then she's like, well, funny you should say that.
Yeah.
You know?
There's a couple. I know a couple old women.
But to get to the grand old sum of 35 people of the town to go, yeah, it's them as well, they're cursing me too. Calm down.
Spoilt brat.
I know. Drama queen. But yeah, that's the Paisley Witches.
There you go. I didn't know that.
You can visit the memorial that they've got for them. It's in Paisley still.
I'd like to see the horseshoe actually.
Yeah, I would
cool.
too. Also, just gonna put it out there. If somebody stole that horseshoe back in the 1960s and anybody knows where it is or that, or like, I don't know, I'd quite like it.
You're not getting that horseshoe.
I really like it, though.
It's not happening.
It'd be so cool.
That was cool. I like that.
Thank you.
Are you going Halloween all month?
I'm going to try my hardest, yeah.
Cool. Well, don't run out before we do our actual Halloween episode.
Oh, no, you know I won't. I've not yet decided what I'm going to do for my actual Halloween one, but it's going to be a big one.
I mean, it'll probably be something from Norway or something. That's what you do with these specials. Anyway, yeah, that was cool. I like that.
Thank you.
If you liked that as well, thank you very much for listening to start with, obviously.
Yes, thank you.
If you like that, you can find our back catalogue of another 34 episodes. In fact, probably 36 or 37 episodes.
Yeah, we've got a couple of specials in there.
All on whatever podcast app you use.
Yep.
While you're there, you could leave us a nice rating and a review.
That'd be charming.
It does help other people find us, and it makes us smile. Mainly that. it makes us
Yeah.
smile more than
We
anything.
love reading them, and we do read each and every single review that we receive.
Yeah, we've had a new one I meant to send to you.
Oh,
I'll
thanks.
send it over. If you really liked what you heard, you can always find an extra episode every month through our Patreon. If you wish to become one of our lovely Patreons, you would get access to said episode on the 15th of every month.
This is becoming so seamless. It's like we're true professionals.
I've now lost my point here. True professionals. Each one of our tiers gets access to all of our bonus episodes.
Yep, and you get a little badge, little thank you card.
Yep, with our fingerprints on it.
Yeah, don't frame us.
Don't crime us. You can find us on all the social media channels. As always, you will find us on Facebook.
Twisted Britain.
You will find us on Twitter.
Twisted Britain.
You will find us on Instagram.
Twisted Britain.
You can also join our Facebook discussion group, which you will find on Facebook by searching for...
Twisted Britain discussion group.
I think that's everything, isn't it?
Email.
Oh, email. We have to do that every time now, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you'd like to get in touch with us but you don't use social media, please feel free to send us an email. We do read them all. I've got them, and then I'll forward them on to Nadine.
Yeah.
You will get our email, twistedbritainpodcast@gmail.com.
One more time, please.
twistedbritainpodcast@gmail.com. Twisted Britain Podcast, all one word.
Yep.
And you'll come straight through to us, and we'll give you a shout out if you send us a nice message.
Yeah, for sure. Also, if you ever do want us to cover something and you want one of us in particular to do it, you can send us a message on social media, like at Twisted Britain, and just put at the top of the message for Bob, for Nadine, or something. And
Chances are I won't see it anyway.
yeah, I'll probably get it, and I won't read it if it's for Bob. I promise. I'll just alert him to the fact. Also, I don't know if it's like from this or if it's just by the by. Like I get quite a lot of like on my personal social media, like friend requests and stuff. And it was just to say, like, we don't accept on our personal social medias, for obvious reasons. But if you do send a message, it does go, like on our Facebooks to a different inbox, and I will happily respond and reply to messages there. If you wish to just message me.
Fine.
Or
Perfect.
Bob, if you want to talk to him.
Not many do. It's fine. I mean, just in general. Never mind podcasting. We'll stop wittering on.
Yeah, shall we?
I think. Thank you everybody very much for listening.
Thank you very much.
It's been fun tonight. I enjoyed that actually.
Thank you. Me too.
So I'll leave you with that. Thank you, love you, bye.
Thank you, love you, bye. And may the devil haul your body through hell. No, your soul. Fuck.